All right, what is up? Welcome back for another episode of the Fit 40 podcast. Today we're going to be talking about 1200 calorie diets and cardio. It is one of those things that a lot of people default to around this time of year. It's one of those things that everybody knows, hey, this worked for me back in the day, like whether that was high school, college, or whatever. It's like basically I go on these low calories, I run myself to death, I lose the weight, and I look and feel amazing. And then for some reason, it always finds its way back, and we always go back to where we began. So, we're going to talk about exactly how not to do that and exactly why we should shift gears and understand why there is a better way. Now, before I do that, just want to say if you're a new listener, I hope you really enjoy this and decide to follow at the end. And if you're a returning listener, make sure you're following so you don't miss another episode. So let's jump into it. All right. So when it comes to the 1200 calorie diets, when it comes to running yourself to death, there are some positives. There are some things that happen that are pretty good. So one of those things is a quick hit of success. Like you see the scale move, you see certain changes happen in your body and you're like, oh, it's working, which honestly is huge in the beginning. You need that little bit of a kick to get yourself in the right headspace to say, you know what, I can do this. And then after that, along with that, okay, the muscle of showing up, like your ability to say, okay, I'm going to do this thing, and then you actually show up and do it. That's huge as well, because that's a muscle of consistency that needs to be built over time. And if people get these grand plans of, I'm going to do the most optimized program in the world, I'm going to do everything perfectly, but they never actually get themselves to do a single workout, it's pointless. So compared to those two, you're better off doing this because you're actually able to do the thing. All right. Then another thing along with that is familiar and simple. So when it comes to starting back up, one big thing is you need it to be simple. You need it to be familiar. You need it to be something that's not super mindful, because right now, again, we're just in that phase of let's just get it done. Doesn't need to be perfect, doesn't need to be optimized. It just needs to get done. And to do that, making it simple and doing something that you've already done before really shortens that gap and reduces a lot of anxiety. So that can be super helpful too. And you're also building multiple skills while doing this. So for example, let's say you're doing 1200 calories and you're like, okay, I'm going to start counting calories. Now, back in the day, might have just been starve yourself and in between college courses and then run and do it that way. Okay. Obviously, we don't want to do that. But now there's a new wave of, oh, I just got to count my calories. And 1200 seems to be this magical number because thanks a lot, MyFitnessPal, for putting that in every single person's tracker, because they understand that counting calories is challenging and a lot of people will mess it up. So they set people so low that even if they mess up, they're probably still going to see some results. But now, instead of explaining that, a lot of people are under the belief that I only burn I only need 1200 calories to see the results that I want. When in reality, it's no, you are definitely eating way, way, way more than that. But nobody told you because they're just trying to give you your app. They're trying to sell you a commodity. They're not trying to actually educate you. But at the end of the day, you are starting to build those skills of, oh, I need to weigh my food. I need to understand what a serving size is. And if you do that correctly, there's a lot of really good skills being built there. Unfortunately, with this method, a lot of people guesstimate, they eyeball, they're like, is it really that far off, when they've never counted calories in their entire life? And then they end up not seeing any results, or they eat way less and put themselves in a worse situation. And then last but not least, when it comes to the big thing that is the big positive, is that people do really feel amazing at the start. They're like, oh my God, my body feels so much better. This is definitely the way to go. But unfortunately, we do see that with a lot of different approaches that don't turn out long term. Things like the carnivore diet or keto diets, like these, or elimination style diets, super restrictive diets. These diets will absolutely have you feeling incredible in the very, very beginning. Now, after weeks, maybe months, maybe even years, you're going to start to feel like crap because you're going to be deficient. You're not going to be operating at your best. And there's a lot of things that are wrong with those approaches, because when we talk about the actual act of you feeling really, really good, it's mostly because there has been some sort of an irritant being removed from your diet, something that is in your diet that your body does not like. And now it's a shotgun approach, because it's like, we're going to take everything that it could potentially be out of your diet, but that also removes a lot of things that could potentially benefit you. There's a lot of people that go like keto, for example, low carb, and maybe they were sensitive to certain preservatives. Maybe they have a gluten thing going on. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, it's just all the carbs, not just this one thing. So now it's so much harder to get enough, for example, fiber. And now they're increasing their chances of falling victim to certain diseases that otherwise could have been preventable. Like their risk factor goes up because they're trying to do what's best for them and feel good. But at the end of the day, they threw the baby out with the bathwater. And you don't want to fall into that either. And a lot of times it's because, oh, I'm not eating at the quantities that I'm used to. So I'm not feeling super bloated. I'm not feeling super lethargic. And that's just due to portion sizes. So it's like, okay, you could have done that while keeping all of your favorite foods in, but now you're eating next to nothing, like basically pigeon portions. Anybody who's ever done Optavia knows exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, you're eating next to nothing. And when you're doing that, you're also reducing so many. I don't want to give it away just yet. Let's just move on to the negatives because I'm starting to get into it and we might as well go. All right. So just know there are some positives. There's like quick hits of success, but we really want to transition to a better approach. But we're not going to talk about that just yet because I want you to understand really what exactly is the reason that these things are not ideal. So let's talk about the 1200 calories in itself. All right. One of the big reasons that people should not be doing 1200 calories is number one, it's the amount of calories a toddler should be consuming. Like that is not for a fully grown man or woman. All right. It's just not. It is always below somebody's basal metabolic rate, which is like the lowest I would ever set them at. And that's like basically how many calories your body burns without you doing anything else. Okay. Many people are in that 1500, 1600 calorie area, especially the ladies. And then the guys are more towards like the 2000, 2500 ish area. But those are loose estimates based on people I've worked with. Don't just take it and say, oh, I'm going to do this instead. Okay. But what happens when you go below these numbers, when you lose too much too fast, you lose lean muscle. And when you lose lean muscle, that number, that basal metabolic rate goes down. This is why when you hear people say dieting, like yo-yo dieting is horrible for you because it reduces your metabolism and you put weight back on faster, it's true. When you go too low and sacrifice too much lean body mass, then your body has no reason to preserve that lean body mass and burn up all those calories to support it. So there's a reason that we don't want to go super duper low. And then on top of that, it eventually does catch up with you and you feel lower energy because you need a certain amount of calories to thrive. You need a certain amount of calories to fuel you, not just to starve you. And even though those first couple of days probably felt amazing, there's usually right around the corner that day of, holy crap, I feel so low energy. And anybody who's experienced like a keto flu, for example, knows exactly what I'm talking about. And that happens very frequently. And we're like, oh, we just got to push past it. It's all about the discipline. Blah, blah, blah. No, it's bullshit. It's your body telling you, hey, something's off. We need a little bit more here. All right. Don't ignore that stuff. On top of that, it could also affect your sleep. When you go low calorie, it can induce a stress response. And that stress response can mess with your sleep. And when you're sleeping worse, then you're also more prone to losing lean body mass. You're also going to be more prone to making poor food decisions. You're also more prone to your hormones being in a horrible state. If your big focus is to improve your hormones and balance them out, the worst thing you could do is starve yourself and run yourself to death, because that is quite literally the opposite of what we want as far as best practice. Along with that, mood regulation. Anybody who's ever been hangry, imagine that 24/7. Okay. When you go really low, you can never really get out of that state. You're always kind of teetering there. And it's very challenging. And you don't want to be in that position where you're just driving your friends and family nuts, because now you're isolating yourself. And isolating yourself during this journey is a very rough thing to do. You don't want to harm relationships with your friends and family just for the sake of trying to lose a few pounds. Along with all of this, like I just mentioned, your hormones can get impacted. It could cause things like amenorrhea, which is the loss of your cycle, and things like that, which we don't want to have happen. And it could also cause what's called the female triad, which is, if you want to Google it, basically it just puts you in the worst position possible to lose bone mass, to lose muscle mass, to mess up your hormones, and to potentially put you in a position where you're going to increase your risk for injury. So don't want to do that. Now, that leads us into too much cardio. What happens when we're doing too much cardio? And that's what I want to make clear here is when we do too much. And too much is really based on how much fuel you're getting and how much volume you're getting on the mileage side of things or time wise, because it's going to be different for everybody. It's not this blanket. If you do X amount of cardio, you are screwed. No, that's not how this works. It's all dependent on how your body is and what it needs and all of that stuff. When we do too much cardio, let's say this is actually, let me back up here, because being that we're at 1200 calories, your capacity for cardio for pretty much any exercise is going to be so much lower than if you properly fuel yourself. So let's assume that you are eating next to nothing and you are doing cardio for your main, if not your only form of exercise. It's going to make it so much harder to build and maintain muscle, because when you are dieting, that should be the main focus if you want to keep your results long term and you want to put yourself in a position where you're the most metabolically healthy. Okay, we're seeing this a lot with the GLP-1 meds. People that lose muscle gain the weight back so fast compared to the people that don't. Okay, so along with that, it could also reduce muscle. When it comes to cardio, in the beginning, yes, you're going to build plenty of muscle when it comes to your legs, like your thighs, your calves, your butt, your abs. You're going to have even your upper back. If you're like very deconditioned, you're going to have all these muscles grow and it's going to be great. But running does not require a high amount of muscle. That's why when you see these marathon runners, they're very tiny and they really don't have a whole lot of muscle on them. Okay, so when it comes to that side of things, it's not exactly ideal for maintaining or building muscle, and it could potentially reduce your muscle if you happen to have more muscle that is too much for the of running, and your body can potentially adapt. And along with that, we have high impact. When you run, when you jog, that is impactful. That is bouncing. That is jumping. That is causing stress to your joints. Now, is this a bad thing inherently? No. Okay. If you have the proper fuel, if you are doing things correctly when it comes to periodizing your program and gradually revving up, then you're totally fine and your body's going to adapt from that. But if you're starving yourself, if you're just running yourself to death, then this is pretty much what's going to lead to eventually. Okay, it's going to lead to higher injury risks, because if you actually go into it and look into what is the highest risk of injury when it comes to sports, weightlifting, super far down the list. You know what's at the top? Combat sports and running. Okay, because running is something everybody does. It's a high prevalence, and basically when people put themselves in this position without any training and just get right back into it, it's almost a guarantee they're going to hurt themselves. So this is also a good case for cross training. So if you do like cardio, just make sure it's not just one form. So mix it up. If you're going to do jogging, then also do rowing. If you're going to do running, also try the elliptical out or swimming or something like that, because that'll work multiple different angles of your joints on your body. And it's going to reduce the instance of overuse injury if we're doing a bunch of different stuff. And it's also going to be very beneficial to your heart, because now you're able to work that cardio heart rate, so that zone 2, zone 3, zone 4 for prolonged periods of time without really impacting your joints in a negative way. So if you really want to go all in on the cardio and not strength train, I wouldn't recommend it. It's not ideal, but you can. And the other thing I wanted to throw in there was that when it comes to those injuries, the big ones that usually happen are stress fractures and tendonitis and bursitis, pretty much anything with an itis where you do too much of one singular movement, like bouncing on your toes when you're running or golfing or tennis. Like that's the stuff where you do multiple repetitions of it, and it can get at you and cause issues like this. Along with that, we also have insomnia, because it is a stress response. When you overload your stress bucket, your body does not like it. It will fight back on you. And insomnia is one of those key things. Along with that, losing focus. If you have a very high pressure job, this is possibly the worst thing you can do, because it's going to affect your mental state. Now, that being said, if you fuel yourself properly and you incorporate cardio, it could be one of the best things, because cardio is actually very good for things like mental clarity, for stress reduction, but that comes with proper recovery. And you just don't get that when you have 1200 calories in the mix. And then, like I said before, hormones, your cycle, all that stuff can get wrecked. I say that to be impactful, not because it's truthful. Your hormones can bounce back if you do the right things, but just understand that doing 1200 calories and cardio is putting you in a very bad spot, more likely than not. And overall, the end result of doing this is one, usually you get stuck at those calories because you can't bring them up without getting unnecessary weight gain. Now, you technically can, and you can reverse diet correctly and do that over a long period of time. But usually the personality types that are, I'm going 1200 calories, I'm running myself to death, are not equipped to, okay, we're going to add 100 calories this month, wait on it, let's see what happens, and then 100 calories this month and do a correct reverse diet. It's this all or nothing bullshit approach that ends up with them gaining all the weight back. And that's just personal experience. There are going to be people that break the mold, but most don't. And then that's also another thing that comes with that is that you get stuck at that same workload. So you feel like you have to do this crazy amount of mileage and starve yourself just to stay where you're at. And then you have two options. One, you stay stuck as a prisoner of your own doing, where you have to do all this stuff that led you to this point, or you cut it and you nip it in the bud and you say, I'm not doing that this time around. So let's say this is you and you're like, okay, I've been doing this for a couple of weeks since January 1st, and I'm hearing all this stuff. I don't want to go down that road. What the hell do I do? Just know our bodies are flexible. Our metabolisms are very, very flexible. You're not broken. There are many ways that you can improve your situation, and it doesn't take a whole lot. It's just a couple of tweaks here and there. So, number one, is get those calories up depending on where your results are. So if you're losing about a half a pound to a pound per week where you're at, then cool, awesome, stay there. But just know that you're probably not eating 1200 calories. And I would definitely double down on the measurements and really figure out exactly how many calories you're taking in. Because right now, if you're not tracking that great, like you're not really weighing everything, you're kind of eyeballing and you're not doing it perfectly to a T, but you're getting the results that you want. This is a perfect opportunity to say, you know what, screw the 1200 calories. Let's just see what I'm eating. And I'm going to make that my new calorie target based on these more accurate numbers. So now you basically haven't been doing anything wrong. You've been doing everything that your body wants. The numbers just didn't line up in an app. So quick fix. Let's just figure out what that new number is. Now, let's say that you're losing really fast. Like I know we had a member of the Fit 40 family, which actually kind of totally inspired this podcast episode because she lost 3.5 pounds in 1 week, and I'm like, okay, that's great. We don't want to glorify super fast fat loss or super fast weight loss like a lot of other groups do, because that's just not how I roll in the Fit 40 family. We do things correctly by the book because we want to get the best results possible. So we want to get in that half a pound to 1 pound per week range. That's ideal. You could even go to 2 pounds if you're on the heavier side. Like if you're over the 200-pound mark, you could get away with 2 pounds a week or higher, but I would never go past that 2 pounds, even if you were in that 3, 4, 500-pound range, because as you might have heard when I had Dr. Susan Bryan on, basically all the research points towards 2 pounds is kind of the max. We don't want to really go past that point, but 1 pound is ideal. So that way it's easier to hold on to lean body mass and you get really, really good results from that. And it's very easier on your body. You don't feel like you're starving all the time, and it's more realistic for most people. So if you can, try and increase those calories by like 100 and just see, how does my body do? And this is assuming you're really good at calorie counting and you're weighing everything out and being intentional with it, not getting some BLTs on the side, those bites, licks, and tastes that never quite make it into the tracker. All of that stuff is making it in, and you're able to see, this is how many calories I eat at 100. And then see, after a week or two, does that get my body in this place? Now, ladies, I know going week to week can be a little rough because depending on your cycle and everything, it could mess things up and you really won't get an accurate measurement of exactly how much weight you gained or lost due to hormonal fluctuations and things like that. So I like going by the month. That way you pick a week where the hormonal fluctuations are not impacting your weight or your inches or anything like that. And you see, okay, this month I added 100 calories. What happened? And if you lost 2 to 4 pounds that month, or what would it be, 4 to 8 pounds that month, you're pretty much in a good spot. 2 to 8 pounds solid, and stay there. But let's say you lost more than that. Okay, let's again look at the consistency, make sure we're on point. And if you were and you measured everything to a T, then okay, add another 100 calories and keep following that pattern, and always check yourself and saying, am I being consistent enough where this is actually a thing? And if so, great, add another 100 calories and find that sweet spot. And then when it comes to exercise, add in other versions of exercise because cardio cannot be the only one. It has a ton of benefits, but too much of a good thing exists everywhere. So do just enough where one, you're enjoying it, two, you're getting all the benefits from it, and three, you're not hurting yourself. And then along with that, incorporate things like strength training. I have clients right now who are doing 2 days a week of strength training, getting stronger, supporting their running and getting better times. So if performance is a really big thing for you, strength training can be super beneficial, especially when you work on the areas that aren't getting hit when you're running. Things like your hamstrings, for example, things like the postural muscles, like your core and your upper back. And those are getting hit while you're working out or while you're running, but they're not getting as much work as if you were to do, say, loaded carries or hamstring curls. And this type of stuff can improve your running and improve your longevity above all else because your joints are going to be in such a better place. And then along with that, if you're the type of person that loves running themselves to death due to stress and keeping your head in a good spot, incorporating things like meditation can be really helpful. So even if it's forced meditation, which is basically like yoga, it's like you force yourself to sign up for the class and you get there and you're like, okay, now I have no way of getting out of this. And I will sit down and listen to the instructor and I will do the breathing exercises that I've heard so much about. Along with that, you could do stretching. So if you're not a big fan of yoga and the woo woo stuff, then just do some stretching, like find some tight areas of your body and stretch them out. There's a million and one different stretches on YouTube. I know I've got a bunch on there. There's plenty of other really, really good ones. Just look up tender spots, like if the outside of your hip is bothering you and it's really, really tight. This is also really good for people that have low back stiffness. Stretching out your piriformis, that side muscle, like on the side of your butt, that can help a ton. Also, the rectus femoris, the rec fem, that muscle that is down the middle center of your thigh, that can also be one of those really underrated spots that does lead to unnecessary lower back stiffness. So sometimes if you can stretch those out, like doing the standing quad stretch where you just like stand up, grab your ankle and pull it to your butt, or you could even do that on the ground if balance is an issue. That could be really helpful. Or a couch stretch. That's a really simple one. You could Google that, find it real quick. And then also the inside of your thighs as well. Very, very neglected spot, especially for the dudes. Some of them have the tightest adductors, ADD The piriformis that I just mentioned is technically an abductor, ABD. B is in boy. And then inside, like those groin muscles, the AD is in dad ductors, those can get very, very, very tight just based on the fact that we never really give them any love. So if you can, doing something like a wall stretch where you just put your butt up against the wall, put your legs up and let them drop down into like a V as low as they possibly can. That can help a lot. Or you could just lay on the ground, throw a band around your foot and then bring it up like you're stretching your hamstring and then bring it out to the side so it hits that inner groin spot. And that could be really cool too. And it will feel a little tight, a little zingy, but it'll be worth it, I promise. And then last but not least on my list, there's plenty more you could do, but this is just my short list. Last but not least is Pilates, because Pilates is one of those things that it complements strength training so well. It complements running so well. It just hits all of those muscles that we don't give enough love to. And more times than not, I've seen so many of my clients, past and present, go there and Pilates just makes everything feel better. So it's one of those things that I'm like, honestly, just go. Just if you want to try Pilates out, have at it. I absolutely love that for you. Let's do it. So that could be a really good one as well. And that's pretty much it. That's my whole spiel on 1200 calories, running yourself to death. It's unfortunately one of those things many people fall back on and it keeps them stuck for years and years and years. And they're like, what the hell? I just am not disciplined enough. It's not that you're not disciplined enough. It's that plan sucks. Okay. Change up the plan. Find one where you can see more success, easier success, and longer term success. And you will be in such a great spot and you'll be feeling like $1,000,000, not just for those first couple of weeks, but for the rest of your life. Okay. So give it a try. Let me know how it goes. And if you want somebody to walk you through it, I have a free metabolic assessment where you can take a look at all the stuff I mentioned, like sleep, hormonal health, your training, your nutrition, stuff like that. And we could go through it in detail and figure out exactly where you should be. So if you want to take advantage of that, it's down below. And if you want more of the free resources, there's the high protein recipe book that you can grab. And there's also the Fit 40 family, which is the Facebook group that I just mentioned where we hang out. I give you guys daily tips And there's a lot of motivational ladies in there doing the same thing you're doing and absolutely crushing it. So definitely check any of those out. And that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to hit that follow button if you enjoyed it. And hopefully I'll see you next time. But until then, go kick some ass. I'll see you later.